Hello, this is the Watchdog, and welcome back to Fun with Watches. If watches weren't fun, you'd only need one. Today we're going to review the Islander ISL 62. Let's start out with the wrist check. I'm wearing my Heimdallr Monster. And Grogo, since it's Timex Tuesday, is wearing my Timex Expedition chronograph. Grogo said he couldn't find his breath mints. So I asked him if these were it. And he said, no, those aren't the Altoids we're looking for. This watch was supplied by Island Watch for this review. I did not pay for it, and I do have to return it. I am not getting paid to do this review. I am not at all monetized. So far, this is all strictly a hobby for me. I am not at all obligated to give this watch a positive review. But in all honesty, I was given the choice of which watch I wanted to review, so I chose the coolest watch I could think of. So giving this watch a negative review doesn't seem very likely since I like it so much. Be sure to visit the Island Watch website. I'll leave a link in the description, but it's a really easy URL to remember, longislandwatch.com. And if you don't like his Islander line of watches, he sells many others, such as Seiko, Phoebus, Timex, Orient, and many, many more. He also sells some Swiss watches such as Squally and Devassa. Mark is an authorized dealer for every watch he sells, which ensures you get the full factory warranty. Let's take a look at the watch. And here it is, the ISL 62. The box is pretty plain, but who needs a fancy hinged box anyway? They just take up space. I never put my watches back in the original box. I only keep them around in case I should ever sell them. Instead of giving an unsigned warranty card, he just gives you a little card that tells you where to go to find your warranty information. You get a 1-year warranty. Since you can only buy the watches from Mark anyway, he knows if you bought it from him or not. This watch retails for $319, but if you're a first-time purchaser, you can get it for 5% off. On the face of this watch is the Great Wave off Kanagawa. It's a completely sterile dial. There is no Islander logo and no day date, unlike most of his other watches. That's so you can enjoy the beauty of this painting with nothing but the hands in front of it. This was done deliberately. You also don't have any indices, and all the indices are on the bezel. It's a 12-hour bezel, so you can use it to track another time zone also. It does have minute markers, but they are on the chapter ring, so it doesn't interfere with the painting. The watch case is based off the Seiko Samurai. It has that polyhedron look, where most Seikos have rounded edges. This one has planes, except for this side here. This is about the only obviously rounded edges, of course, other than the bezel. It has an NH36 movement, which of course normally has a day-date complication, but this one does not. The NH36 beats at 21,600 beats per hour, and that's 6 ticks per second. And I did a time grapher on it, and right now it's running 3 seconds fast, which is a really good time. But once again, this is an NH36, and when you run a time graph on it, it's usually all over the place. You're going to be plus or minus 10 seconds, regardless. The position of the watch also is very important. The NH36 is a good movement, but it's not as consistent as a more expensive movement. The watch has a 42 millimeter width, 48 millimeters lug to lug, but 52.8 if you count the end links. It's 14 millimeters high unless you count the dome crystal, and then it's 14.7 millimeters high. It's kind of tall, but it sits really flat. If you look there, you don't really see the case back popping out like you do on most watches. So it sits very flat on your wrist. The watch weighs 200 grams with 2 links removed for my 7.5-inch wrist. That's pretty heavy for a watch, but 100 grams of it is the bracelet because it has a very thick bracelet. So the weight is very evenly distributed. So it doesn't feel as heavy as it is. The bezel is a ceramic 120 click unidirectional bezel with, once again, 12 hours instead of a timing bezel. And the bezel action is very good, but it's also very stiff too. The clicks are very even and there's no back play, but it takes quite a grip to turn it. You can use a 12-hour bezel to track another time zone. For example, if I go to visit my parents in California and I live in the Midwest, I can just move it to put a 10 at the noon time because California are 2 hours away from me. And then when I read the hours, all of a sudden 5 o'clock becomes 3 o'clock. It's usually better if you have indices on the middle too, because it makes tracking 2 time zones better. But once again, you're not getting indices on the face just because of the artwork. But even though you have a 12-hour bezel, you can still use it as a timing bezel. Just put the arrow where the minute hand is, and you can still count the minutes. We've been converting hours to minutes ever since we learned how to tell time on a clock. We all know instinctively that 3 hours is also 15 minutes. We can do the math in our head automatically. The clicks feel very similar to my Seiko 5. And I think the only reason I think it's a hair stiffer is it's just a little bit harder to get a grip due to this samurai case. I think the Seiko 5 is easier to get a grip. Here, let me show you the Seiko 5. See, because it does, since the case doesn't stick out as much as the samurai case, it's just easier to get a grip. But once again, the clicks feel the same. It has a double-domed AR-coated sapphire crystal. And it looks very nice. And once again, the case is very similar to the Seiko Samurai. I wouldn't say that Mark makes homages as so much as he makes compatible watches. This watch is compatible with bezels designed for the Samurai, bracelets designed for the Samurai, and other things that modders like to do, because the modder community really loves Mark and his website. Once again, this is a very tall watch, but it sits very flat on the wrist. And when I give you a wrist shot later, you'll see what I mean. It has a signed screw-in crown with the Islander logo, which gives it 200 meters of water resistance. But this is not an ISO 6425 rated diver watch. In fact, if you look at the documentation, it explains that you should not use this as the primary timekeeping while diving. It should only be used as a backup to a dive computer. The crown is at the 3 o'clock position, where most Seikos and Seiko compatible watches have the crown at the 4 o'clock position. But with the hefty crown guards there, the crown does not dig into your wrist and nothing's going to bump into it. The crown guards are really good. But the crown is so big you can get a good grip on it. And the nice thing is when you unscrew the crown, it pops out. So you know exactly when you can stop unscrewing it. Then it hand winds and you can hack. You don't have the day-date complication. So you don't have to worry about setting the day-date in the wrong time period, which can damage an NH36 movement. When you're done setting the watch and ready to put the crown back in, it screws in very nicely. You can't really feel any thread noise or anything like that, and there's no danger of cross-threading it. The case back is just a basic stainless steel with the Long Island logo. As you can see, there's an image of Long Island with the Islander logo in the middle and then the words Islander. It's not a display case back, but honestly, if you've seen one in H36, 35, you've seen them all. The bracelet on the 22mm lugs is just amazing. I love this bracelet. This is the best watch bracelet I've ever had. I had to take out 2 links to fit my 7.5-inch wrist. As you can see, the links have screw-in pins rather than push pins. And it comes with this screwdriver, so you don't have to worry about not having a screwdriver to fit it. The screws are also pretty big too, so it's not that difficult to unscrew them. A lot easier than messing with the push pins. The 2 links I removed is 0.7 inches. So basically, if you have a wrist bigger than 8.2 inches, you're going to need some extra links. Either that or you can get a larger clasp, because this clasp is rather small. I really like the links of this bracelet. They look like half octagons. And the end links are solid. And they're shaped to fit the samurai lugs perfectly. The bracelet is designed to fit samurai watches. So if you have a Seiko Samurai and you don't want to buy this watch, you can simply buy the bracelet for $59 and it will fit your Samurai perfectly. It sure beats the rubber strap that comes with a lot of Samurais. And even the Seiko metal straps are not this good. Unfortunately, the clasp is not as good as the bracelet. It's a milled scissor clasp, but the housing is just pressed. And there's only 3 micro adjusts. And the clasp is not signed. I asked Mark why the clasp was unsigned, and he says since they get scratched up so easy, he just didn't think it was worth the effort. But he says enough people have expressed interest in a signed clasp, so he's going to probably introduce one. The safety latch is really tight. It takes a lot of effort to unlock it. Even the best pickpocket or magician in the world can never take this off your wrist without you knowing it. Mark does sell a $30 fully milled clasp with 6 micro adjust, but I have to review the clasp that it came on. Here is the watch on my 7.5-inch wrist. Look at that lighting effect. Isn't that cool? How the light catches the different angles of the bracelet. I just love this bracelet. And once again, this is a tall watch, but look how flat it sits on my wrist. You don't see no big gaps where the case back is or the end links. This is a big heavy watch. And if you don't think you can wear a watch this big, but you just love the wave dial and the bezel, they do make the ISL 68, which is a smaller watch. However, keep in mind, it is not a mini samurai. It is a mini turtle. So you're going to get a totally different designed case. And you're not going to get this cool bracelet. You're going to get a 20mm oyster style bracelet. So unless you just can't stand a big watch, I would encourage you to go with this one instead, because that bracelet's just awesome. It has drilled lugs to make changing straps and bracelets easier. And the end links fit in the lugs really snug, which makes it kind of difficult to remove, because when you push in one of the drilled lugs, you can't just tilt it. You have to push in both. So you have to take 2 tools and kind of push them at the same time and pull out. I really wish I had some spring bar pliers. I didn't think of that because I never had this issue before. I went ahead and ordered some from Amazon today, but obviously they're not going to get here today in time for this review. But if you're going to buy this watch and you intend to change straps and bracelets, I definitely recommend some spring bar pliers. I took the watch off the bracelet so I could show it to you on a NATO strap. But before I do that, I just wanted to show you these spring bars. They're huge. Really solid, sturdy spring bars. You don't have to worry about them breaking on you. Here is the watch on a khaki NATO strap. I think it goes really good with khaki. One problem with the NATO though, on such a tall watch, it makes a tall watch even taller. But the nice thing is with these big old lugs, you don't have to use both straps under the case back. Let me show you. Because of these big lugs, this strap isn't going anywhere. So you really don't need the understrap to hold it in place. So you can fold the understrap over so you only have one strap underneath the case back. Here, I'll put it on my wrist with one strap and see that it doesn't sit near as high. See, here it is on the NATO with the second strap just folded over at the buckle. See, it doesn't sit near as high and is much more wearable. And here's the watch on a vintage leather strap. This thing can be a real strap monster. Here we are in the Lume room, so let's check out the Lume of this watch. The Lume is one of the highlights because this is how the watch works. Let's go ahead and give it a charge first. We need to charge this because my phone camera does not do very well in the dark. If I don't charge it with the UV light, you're just not going to see very much. But that's just because of the quality of my camera. It's not because of the quality of the Lume. Okay, I gave it a good charge. So let's kill the lights. And there it is. See, some pretty good Lume there. And see how the hands aren't loomed? Well, at least the hour, minute hand aren't loomed. That way they show up nice on the Lume background. Plus, as you can see, all the numbers and the triangle on top of the bezel are all loomed also. I was concerned at first because there was no Lume pip, but no, they don't need a Lume pip because it's loomed anyway. Here, let me move the minute hand just since they're all bunched together right now. See, doesn't that look good? It's a really nice effect there. I think it looks better than if the hands were loomed. What do I like about this watch? Well, first of all, the watch is fun. That loomed face is awesome. The effect of the Lume at night where you can see the face and the dark hands overwards is just great. I love this bezel. It's really nice looking. The ceramic doesn't scratch. It's a great bezel. I really like the samurai case. That polyhedron effect is really cool. And this is by far the best bracelet I've ever owned. I just can't believe how good it is. It looks awesome when you wear it. I love how it reflects the light. It's just a great bracelet. And this watch is a very reasonable price considering what you're getting. You'll spend at least $100 more for a true Seiko Samurai. And you're not going to get the sapphire crystal, the ceramic bezel, or this really cool bracelet. What are my gripes and groans? Well, an awesome bracelet deserves an awesome clasp, and this is not it. This clasp is just rather dull. In fact, if you look at the clasp on my Heimdallr, it's just basically the same thing except for the Heimdallr is signed and this one isn't. And the bezel, it's really stiff and hard to turn, although I must admit the more I turn it, the easier it's getting. So maybe it just needs a break-in period. And this isn't a gripe and groan so much as it is an observation. You need to understand that you are giving up something by getting this watch. You are not having indices on the face, and you are not having a day date. And that's not really a big deal if you're a watch collector with many watches and you just want to pull out the really cool watch every now and then. But if you're buying this for your daily watch, you just have to understand what you're giving up before you make that purchase. Of course, don't we always give up something by getting a cool watch? Basically, we could all just live with a $20 Casio because it does everything we need. So, but no, we buy these more expensive watches because they're just more fun and more cool. So, just keep that in mind when buying this watch. But if you don't want to give up the day date or the indices, Mark makes many watches just like this, but without the wave face. And it has the exact same case, the exact same movement, the exact same bracelet, and then you'll get a day date and the indices. It all depends. Do you want style or you want substance? Do I recommend this watch? Of course I do. This watch is just cool. It's very well built, and I do not think you'll be disappointed at all with it. I sure am not disappointed with this watch. It's everything I hoped it would be. And once again, I need to thank Mark personally for supplying this watch for this review. When I reached out to Mark to get a watch to review, he could have looked at my subscriber count and said, there's no way I'm going to give you a watch to review. So he really did me a favor, and I need to make another shout out to Mark for making this review possible. I'll be returning this watch after this review as agreed, and hopefully Mark will send me more watches in the future. I'm hoping he'll send me one of his new monsters so I can do a side-by-side comparison with this Heimdallr that I'm wearing right now. Well, thank you for watching my review, and I will be back with another review, more than likely for that Pagani Design 300 meter diver watch. Bye.